Hey 7th graders, Mx.Thayer here. In this lesson we were talking about simplifying expressions. We are going to be combining our work in lesson 1 where we talked about what all this vocabulary was and did a little bit of simplifying with our constants. And then what we did in lesson 2 where we talked about what a like term is. And now that we know what like terms are, we're going to talk about how we can combine like terms in order to simplify. And we will continue our use of algebra tiles to model combining like terms. I'm going to start with an example where we are combining terms that only have positive coefficients. That way we don't have that added stress of trying to figure out where our negatives go. So we're working with 2x plus 3y plus x plus y plus 7. And the first thing I'm asking you to do is sketch a diagram using algebra tiles. When Miss Thayer went over this in the last lesson, she was using purple to represent the y's, blue to represent the x, and I kind of forget what color for our ones pieces or those constants, but my app that I work with doesn't have purple. So mine won't quite match what Miss Thayer did in the last lesson or what the actual algebra tiles look like. So I made this key for you where I will be using blue to represent x's, green to represent y's, and then just black squares to be my constant pieces. So let's get going with sketching a diagram using algebra tiles. And when I do this, I really go term by term. So I'm going to start with my 2x's. And to show that those are positives, I'm just putting some little plus signs inside of them. Then I'm going to add my 3y's. Then I have one more positive x, one more positive y, and 7 ones pieces to represent my constant of 7. So there's our completed diagram using algebra tiles. My next step is I'm going to organize my like terms. And this could look in any order on your sheet as long as you're keeping track of what is a positive or negative. So in this case, these are all positives. So I'm going to start with just pulling all of my x tiles in one area. So because I had 3 x tiles total, I'll put those together and you can also see there's those 2 right there and one more right there. Okay, now I'm gonna smush all of my y tiles together. So there we go, we have those 3 y's and then one more y. And lastly, we don't really have to combine our constant because there's only one of them. So we have 7 ones pieces. So now that I know I have all of my terms represented with tiles, I can go ahead and just count what I have and combine them. So what I have right here are 3 positive x's. So I'm going to write down 3x. What I have right here are 4 positive y's. So since that is 4 positive y's, I'm going to say plus 4y. Then what I have right here is that 7, positive 7. So that's plus 7. And that is my simplified expression. So 2x plus 3y plus x plus y plus 7 is equivalent to 3x plus 4y plus 7. So let's see how this works now that we have some negative terms in the mix. So again, just a reminder, the operation that is in front of a term tells you whether or not it is a positive or negative term. So for example, this right here doesn't necessarily mean plus 4y if we're talking about it as a term. What it means is we have positive 4y's. Let's see how this works out. So I'm going to use the same method as I did before. I'm going to work from right to left just like I would read a sentence and start throwing down my algebra tiles, starting with this negative 7x. And I use the red negative symbol in there just to remind myself that those are negative tiles. If you were working in the classroom with actual tiles, you would just flip over your x to show that that is a negative x. So you'd have the red side instead of the blue side. All right, next let's add 4 positive y's. So I represented that with the black plus sign, just to remind myself that those are indeed positives. And then we'll add 3 negative y's. And then we have 5 positive x's. Okay. And then we have 3 negative units, or 3 negative ones pieces. And lastly, 2 positive ones pieces. And we can start organizing our like terms. Again, this is just a matter of preference for me, but I like to pull all of my x's together at the beginning, and then I go with my y's, and then I do my constants. So I'm going to start by pulling all of my positive and negative x's to one side. And when I'm doing this, I like to line my positive and negatives right up against each other so I can see where the additive inverse shows up, or where I have, like right in here, I have 1 positive and 1 negative. So I know that will make a 0 because 1 minus 1 is 0. And I'm going to do the same thing with my y's and my units. So once we get to this point, we can think of these really just as their coefficients. So working with my x's first, I know that these are all x's. So I'm just going to think of this as -7 plus 5, which equals -2. And you can see that visually also. I have a 0 pair right here, and a 0 pair right here, right here, right here, right here. That all just turns into 0. And what I'm left with is just 2 negative x's. So I'm going to put that in my combining of my like terms. I'm going to say that I now know that I have -2 x's total. I'm going to do the same thing for my y's. I have a 0 pair right here, and right here. So this is also kind of like saying that I have 4 plus -3, which equals +1. So since I have +1 y's, that is going to be plus y. And now for my constants. I have a 0 pair right here. -1 plus 1 is 0. -1 plus 1 is 0. And what I'm left with, and I forgot to write that down right here, is just 1 negative. So this is like saying -3 plus 2 equals -1. So since that term is -1, I'm going to write -1. And I now have -7x plus 4y minus 3y plus 5x minus 3 plus 2 all simplifies down to -2x plus y minus 1. So I want you all to try this one on your own and then come back here and check in and see how you did. So again, let's remember that an x squared is not the same as an x. So it is its own kind of term. All right, go ahead and try drawing this algebra tile model and then check back in. All right, here's my tile model. Go ahead and compare with what you all came up with. And next, let's organize those terms. All right, here's what I came up with. So 5x squared minus 3x squared. There's a 0 and a 0 and a 0. So what that ends with is 2x squareds. And then -3x plus 2x. There's a 0 and a 0. And so what I'm left with is just a -x. And then there's nothing to combine with my y's, so I just have 5 y's. So I can write that all out to say 2x squared minus x plus 5y. For our last activity, we're going to practice a little bit more with assigning specific variables of value and then simplifying. So your first step here is I want you to take this expression, negative 3x squared plus 2x plus 4y minus 3x plus 0.2 minus 2y, and organize and combine your like terms. So start with that. There's my original tile model, and as I was doing this, I realized, well, you can't really do a tile model with 0.25, so I'm just kind of writing that I have that constant of 0.25. Now I'm going to combine all of my tiles and combine all of my terms. So when I smush them all together, I see that I have negative 3x squared, and then 2x minus 3x is just negative 1x, and then 4y's minus 2y's is just 2y's. And so my simplified expression, I'll write this down below, is actually negative 3x minus x plus 2y. And now that we have this more simplified expression, it'll be easier for us to work with. So instead of doing this big long thing up here, we can now just replace x, oops, I forgot to put the exponent right there, with 2. So anywhere you see an x, replace it with a 2, including where you have your exponent. And this will be one of the places where you can see how x squared and x really are not the same value. So since I have two x's there, I'll replace those x's with 2's. And then 2 squared is actually 4, because 2 times 2 is 4. So I now have negative 3 times 4 minus 2 plus 2y. And I can keep simplifying that and say that negative 3 times 4 is, negative 12 minus 2 plus 2y. And then negative 12 minus 2 is negative 14. So I can actually say that my final expression here is negative 14 plus 2y. And you're as simplified as you can get. Go ahead and try this last one on your own and then check on back and see how you did. Remember, we're working with this simplified expression right here. And so anywhere you see a y, you're just going to replace it with negative 3 and then simplify. So there's the work I did, and this can simplify to just negative 3x squared. There's nothing else you can do with that. Minus x, nothing else you can do with that. And then you can either have it say minus 6, or it's the exact same thing to say negative 3x squared minus x plus negative 6. Those mean the same thing. All right, go ahead and give your journal problems a try. Thank you for watching this very long video, and good luck. Let us know how we can help you.